And welcome back. We are back here for another week, another episode. For some reason, Nazario had me narrate this one, so I apologize if the intro is a little
I
rough.
didn't make him do anything, okay, guys? He sat in the middle. You,
Yeah,
you can attest. This was
that's
not.
fair. That's fair.
You
That's
you
fair.
can't have someone introduce something
Yeah,
who's sitting
that's
on the
fair.
side here. It
It's
would just.
it's actually the color's fault, you know.
Yeah,
It's
True.
the
sure.
He is
aesthetic.
singled out
Yeah.
right now. He's just. It's all cold today.
Yeah.
See, I may have willingly chose to sat in the middle, but they both chose to sit in both the corner seats before I actually got here. So I guess I didn't have the free will actually to choose in the corner seats. So you did force me to do this.
I don't know what I did.
Really?
No, I don't. I just sat down, man.
Okay. Well, Nazario and I got back recently, a week ago, and we started getting back onto our little movie grind. We watched Wicked over winter break, not together, and that was cinema peak for both of us. I think we can both attest to that, and so we will promise there will be an episode about that at some point when our buddy Evan over here decides to.
I finally see that.
Yeah, finally
Caroline
watch that
Caroline
one.
has been
Mhm.
pushing to go watch it. She saw it in theaters.
Mhm.
I am a strong anti-theater person. As a person who owns every single streaming service, I feel like it's kind of silly for me to go see something in theaters. So I'd rather much just wait and when it comes out on Disney Plus or Hulu, I'll inevitably see it and be able to like sit in my house for 3.5 hours and like get snacks and stuff.
2.5.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, 2.5
Sit in my
hours.
house for 2.5 hours and get snacks and stuff, which I'm looking forward to because that's much better than going to the movies and paying $30 for some popcorn. So
I mean, personally, I thought it was pretty great in the movies, but that's besides the point. That's besides the point. But we are back here at Alabama, as you can see, and our consistent schedule will return. We are all together now. We will be able
hopefully,
to
yes,
do it.
yes.
We are hoping to record every Friday, but this is not a Friday. We are recording on a Saturday and get back to publishing every Sunday. We've got you guys. We have 3 now. So it used to be if Cole or myself could not do it, then we couldn't really do it. But now if one of us can't do it, then 2 people can still do it. So we'll figure it out for you guys. But want to introduce this episode a little bit by talking about our start of our semesters, classes. We've just had syllabus week. But what do we think about our semesters, classes-wise? Are we going to be okay? Guys, it is Evan's final semester here at Alabama.
Little moment of silence.
So, how do you feel, sir?
Feels really good, honestly. Yeah, fantastic. Just to be like in this little area of like almost being at the end. It's really cool because as a biology major, a lot of our last year is a lot of electives. So I'm taking a lot of lab courses, a lot of just like a little more niche, interesting stuff. So really enjoying being in those courses, smaller, more intimate, kind of more lab and field trip based. So I think it's going to be a fantastic semester. I don't think it's going to be very hard, which is awesome, and sets me up for a lot of time to do stuff like this and to spend with y'all disc golfing or whatever. By the way, guys, Nazario has agreed to. I don't know. Has the Cactus Rock story ever been told?
No.
Do they know about the disc golfing ever?
No.
Okay, so I guess that's fair then, right? Cole roped me,
And me.
I guess a long
Yeah,
while
I
after
don't think we talked about
Nazario,
this.
right,
Yep.
into disc golfing. Cole roped me in last semester, and there's actually a professional course here in Tuscaloosa that is supposed to take 4 hours to play. It's like I think we looked; it was like 8.5 miles of walking.
And
had
it
to
usually
do.
takes disc golfers like what? Like an hour to 15
Hour and a
minutes for us
half,
to play a
maybe.
game. So
Yeah. But Cole wants us to go to play the professional course and be really bad at it. So we need some encouragement for Nazario to come with us. But yeah, really looking forward to this semester, having a lot of free time to do stuff like that. Yeah.
How about you, Cole? How's it looking?
It's good. Got a lot of time that I had. So if we just look at classes, my semester looks great. Got a lot of free time from that. They're all hard classes, but it's only 13 credit hours. So on paper, it looks good, but like in reality, it's a lot of work. But it's not just classes. It's not the reality of what a semester is, you know. I've got other things I'm involved with here. A lot of things that are, you know, time things, time commitments, things I got to do. Spirit and Truth, director of music ministry this year, so that's cool. Get to be involved with that a lot, and help lead people in adoration, which is awesome. And one of my favorite things to do here by far is help out with that and lead music, because music's kind of just always been my network for the faith. So yeah, and so other than classes and that, my semester's pretty busy, but I have time in the evenings most of the time. And, you know, we have time to squeeze in podcast episodes every week, time to get in some disc golf rounds, time to play some intramural sports. So I'd say it's as great as ever. What about you?
Gonna be interesting. First semester of psychology for me.
Yeah, big change.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I just have two basics this semester for that. Closing out the minor in news media, just in case I want to do some sports broadcasting on the side and be able to do that. And then I'm the director of intramural sports, so you know I'll be leading the intramural people. One of my favorite things that we do with that is after every game we try to pray with the other team. And so that should be pretty cool, just to try to, you know, reach out. And I'm hoping to be a better leader for showing people, you know, we really are here to have fun and how to play the game the right way, so that, you know, we can be an example of Christ to other people. So hopefully we can be better about that. Not that we were ever bad, but, you know, you can always be better about that, especially when you're playing competitive sports. And then we got discipleship and everything like that. But I'm hoping to get into some research this semester for psychology. So could be a very busy semester, but I'm excited for it. And then, of course, I will be following the basketball team. I'll be at all their home games this year, and I would like to see if we can go to maybe a March Madness game, see if I can get credentials for that. But I'm very excited to see what this team can do. I've been following them since last offseason in their Final Four run, so I'm ready for that.
So I want to put you on the record here. So two questions, because you know we're all talking about college football, and while this isn't a college football podcast, you know. First one, Notre Dame versus Ohio State, right?
Yep.
Ohio State opens as 9.5-point favorites last
Big
night.
game. Big game.
Who you have there? And then, as an insider, sort of, what is the ceiling of the Alabama basketball team, and what is the floor of this Alabama basketball team?
I'll start with Bama basketball because this is going to be more straight analysis. The second one will be way more biased. But for Alabama basketball, by far, the ceiling really is a national championship. They have 13 players that they can go to that all can play high Division I level. And I've gone to multiple post-game press conferences, whether it was the McNeese State coach, whether it was the Arkansas State coach, saying that this bench is unbelievable, the depth is unbelievable, and that the people on the bench could be starting at any other program in the country. So Nate Oates has done an amazing job at building a roster, and they can play the game in any way. And which means they can play winning with three-pointers as they try to do, but they can also play when they miss shots. They've missed three-pointers against Oklahoma and South Carolina, beat those teams by 20+. They're not great SEC teams, but that's just the start of the SEC slate. So definitely the ceiling is a national championship. And for the floor, it's at least a Sweet 16 to me. I think they'll get through the first two games because of the talent. They're going to be probably a 2 seed at worst, if not a 1 seed. But after that, if they don't shoot well, it's going to be hard to beat those teams after that. So, like we saw against San Diego State 2 years ago, they couldn't shoot. They lost the game. So that's what happens in March Madness. That's why it's such a great tournament. And then going to Notre Dame, Ohio State national title. Man, we were with Cole. I was watching with Cole on Thursday night, and he's never really seen my fandom for Notre Dame. He's seen like my slight fandom for Alabama football, like it's there. But then he saw Notre Dame fandom, and he's like, okay, I understand. Nazario really does care about Notre Dame. I cried. I cried after they won that game.
Shed.
I will cry even more if they beat Ohio State.
He played highlights until 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah,
so.
I was reading about it and
On
watching
the TV.
highlights. Like it was
miserable.
It was amazing.
The same plays over and over and over again.
It was
Good.
great. But it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Texas did an amazing job last night on Ohio State's wide receivers, but they play a completely different defense than we do. They were sitting back in zone the entire game. We play aggressive man coverage, and I have no idea how it's going to go. They have Jeremiah Smith, and he was held to 1 catch for 3 yards yesterday. That's scary. When you get a player that's that good and on their revenge game after playing terrible, he might be just hunting dogs out there, just going crazy. So
Well, and they still won by 2 touchdowns.
They still won by 2 touchdowns. So I'm just happy to be there, and I just hope it's close. And if that happens, I'll be good. As long as we don't get the 2012 blowout that we had last time, I'm fine.
So shifting back to the present moment, what we're doing now. We just got off of the leadership retreat, right? It's a big thing for today. Literally happened this morning and up
You
until
want
about
to
now.
toss in a little bit of what that means?
Yeah, sure. So, the leadership retreat, what it's about is kind of emphasizing the importance of the roles that we play here at Bama Catholic and how we should live by those roles. And so, Evan is on search team. Like I said, I'm the director of music ministry, and Nazario is the director of intramurals. While these are all important titles, the important part of this retreat was to make sure that we all know that we're all equals. We're all still here, right? Despite having these titles, we are all still human beings. We are all still sons and daughters of Christ, and we are trying, or I guess just sons in the room, but still trying to get to heaven. And our goal is just to help other people get there. And so today was kind of just a good way to get adjusted with that, and learn how to be involved in our committees, our own separate committees. Like I said, he's with Search, I'm with all the people in Spirit and Truth, and he's with all the people in Fellowship.
Fellowship and events.
And so how does that look for you guys? How does Search reach out to people, and how does it bring them to church? How does Fellowship and intramurals in particularly, more since that's more of what your specific is. And then for me, I will say with Spirit and Truth, it's weekly. So I'd say we get a new crowd every week. There's people you don't see there all the time, and so you get a new group. There's a good bit of people, I'd say, that consistently show up. And so what it is a holy hour, adoration holy hour, filled with praise and worship music. And it's a way to kind of connect with people who aren't familiar, with the Catholic Church, I'd say, and give them more of a common slate that like more of a branch that you have from this contemporary music style that will help them bring them into the church and understand the appreciation of what we have for the Eucharist and the monstrance in front of us. And so that is kind of my job, is to help them get that physical and emotional connection and spiritual connection to God through that.
Yeah.
So
I'll say Spirit and Truth has been one of the most wonderful, is one of the most wonderful opportunities we offer here at Bama Catholic. I have thoroughly enjoyed and made it a point in my weekly plans to regularly visit Spirit and Truth. It's a good reset, and it's right in the middle of the week, right? Hump day, getting over the hump, whatever. It's right in the middle of the week to where, you're having a bad week, it's a reset. You're having a good week, it's a great opportunity to go and, have an hour of Thanksgiving. For me, leadership retreat, just being on Search team is a good opportunity to just start it out. Search is our 3-day retreat every semester. We take a group of students, usually around 60 to 80 students, up to Living River Retreat Center up here outside of Montevallo, Alabama. And we, it ranges between small groups and talks to independent time, prayer time, and then, obviously a little bit of fun, a little bit of tomfoolery and stuff like that. I've been on Search every single semester. I went as a participant 3 times. This will be my 3rd semester on team. I love it. It's a fantastic opportunity to serve the community and to bring in new people. It's a fantastic opportunity to grow with the people but it also always brings something new. I love Search so much because I've never had the same opportunity at a Search retreat twice. I've never had the same experience at a Search retreat twice. And so, every time I go back, it gleams something different. I learn something new. Common themes prevail, but I always come away knowing that the time I've spent there with the people I've spent there has been valuable. So Search retreat and being a team member, I've continually seen people drawn into the faith and reversions and conversions and the wonderful, wonderful work that God has done through us on Search is fantastic. I know y'all have both been and probably touch a little bit on it, but it really truly is a fantastic experience. And to anyone listening, if you're in the area, we do it's open to Alabama students and non-Alabama students. So this year's Search Retreat will be in the early spring. So if you're interested in going, yeah, there's always space on the retreat for anybody.
So one of the biggest things about search that I'd say, the biggest fear factor going into it is you're screenless, you're phoneless, and
yeah.
you don't know time the entire
yeah.
weekend. And so what does that look like? That looks like you just sitting there building relationships with friends and with God the whole weekend, right? The whole purpose is to kind of escape the reality of the world for a little bit and try to lock in with your relationships with other people and your relationships with God. And I'd say Search does a really good job about that. So if you're thinking about it, highly recommend it. He'll be on Search team. He gave an excellent talk last time, and so we hope the talks are just as good this time. Is there anything to say on that?
So we had our retreat, and our mission statement, correct me if I'm wrong, is it find, form, launch? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Finding, forming, launching.
Bam-
Is that the 3 words?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 3 words: finding, forming, launching, and so right here, what they're talking about, obviously, great ways to form yourself as a Christian, as a Catholic, whether it's as the reconversions, conversions that happen at Search, all the things you learn, or just being in adoration. But they throw it over to me. My it's way more of a find/launch. We are launched out into the world. We're playing intramural sports at the University of Alabama, and obviously the University of Alabama, it's a public university. It's not a Catholic university. Everyone's not Catholic here. So we're launched out into that secular world, which is what we're called to do. And then our job also is to find. So hopefully we can be out there to find people and to draw people in. And as Christians, as Catholics, our lives should be attractive to other people, and the way that we live should be attractive to other people and should draw them into the faith. And that's kind of what we're there to do. But also for the people inside of Bama Catholic that are a part of it, they just get to enjoy some fun. And, we have classes, we get to go and play sports, and they don't have that at a lot of schools. I have friends from other schools, and they don't have intramural sports anywhere like they do at Alabama. So it's an incredible gift to just be able to go out there, whether it's our men's soccer team, whether it's our co-rec basketball team. Just get to go out there and have fun. So that's what it's about. And yeah, it's very fun to lead that. But one of the things that happened at our leadership retreat, the very first thing that our director or campus minister told us, the story from the gospel about Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. And big message of the whole retreat was to be a servant leader. And so how do we do that? Well, that transitions right into our quote, which comes from the Gospel of John, and it is, "He must increase, I must decrease." It came from, today is Saturday, January 11th, the daily readings from today, and we read that, and we were like, well, our whole retreat is kind of about this. Why would we not go into this? So I'll read it. I'll say it again from the Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 30. "He must increase, I must decrease." Anyone want to kick it off?
I'll start it off. So this was our reflection when we first got in. We had Holy Hour, and I sat down, read the reading, and got my notebook out. And the first thing I wrote on my paper, I like to start things off with a question and answer it myself. So the question I asked myself for the day is, what is humility? So I want to throw that out to you two and let y'all batter around with it, see what we get, and what's our conclusion here. And on top of that, on a side note, what is human pride?
Yeah, I've always liked this, and this is going back to the gospel passage about Jesus washing the feet. So not quite, "He must increase, I must decrease" yet. But I've always liked this quote, this story, because it's the first time I can think of in the gospel, and this is something I was thinking about today, where, where Jesus says something like, "Y'all think of me as master, as Lord." And instead of saying like, no, I'm here to serve, he says like, yeah, that's true. Like, I am your master. I am your Lord. And racking my brain for the longest time, but I can't think of another time in the Gospels where that comes up, right? And so I think that's the base of humility, right? Knowing that, and in this case, you, putting yourself in Jesus' shoes, you are the most perfect creation ever made. You are literally God. But yet, And you know with the full knowledge that you are master and Lord of all creation. And yet, in that moment, choosing to willingly submit yourself and wash the feet of your servants, right? Choosing to willingly submit yourself later on in the story to death, to terrible, excruciating pain, so that you can serve those around you. I hope at least, right? And is a common thought. I hope at least that our lives never come to that point where we have to submit ourselves to excruciating pain for the sake of another. But I think that's humility, right? That humility of recognizing that that my will is no bigger than yours, or that my desires are no bigger than yours. The question I wrote down here is, what if we lived our lives like our will was the least thing that mattered? That's humility to me, is realizing that what we are and our ego, personality, right? This persona is nothing in comparison to our service that we do to others and our service for Christ and his will for us in the world.
Yeah, and so the definition of love, you can say it a couple different ways, but it's willing the good of the other person and to just give yourself. And you can't love without humility, in my opinion. Like, you can't be prideful and love. You have to be humble to be able to love, and our calling is to love. That's why one of our best virtues is humility, and to be able to get down on our knees and wash the feet of other people. And it's, yeah, to see them, and I just think, picture an image of someone who's high and mighty and has all this money, and yet they're down there serving the poor, and they don't see a difference between those people and who they are. They just see them as a brother and sister in Christ, and someone that needs love. And that is what we're all called to think about. It's a very hard thing to do, to get your mind to be like that, because as human beings, as Cole talked about, you said, what is human pride? Correct, was your question.
Yep.
And it's all about comparison and judgment, and thinking that you're better than, it goes back to thinking that you're better than somebody else in some way. And there's a couple of times today where that would pop in your mind, and you had to be like, no, like this, I'm not better or worse than this person. We're different. Well, we are so different as people, every single one of us. There's no reason to try to compare ourselves to somebody else. I think about this when we're in church and we're before mass getting prepared. Someone could be kneeling down. Someone could be sitting up. And some people, in my brain, would be like, oh, that person's like kneeling down. Like, oh, that's like so much better. Like, they're so much more into their prayer. And it's like, okay, maybe like their prayer is going better, but like your mind doesn't need to think about that. Like, you could be sitting, you could be kneeling. You are different people. The way that you pray is different. And so all these different thoughts in our minds, but it just comes back, we're all our own human being. We all deserve love, and we're all unique in our own ways. And if we all just gave to each other and willed the good of other people, then we would see that our will for our own selves is, accomplished through that. So,
reality is everybody's different. Everybody's at different levels in their faith journey, their journey of life, where they're at in their world, in their own world. But if we take it all back, the root, the sin that is everything is stemmed from is pride, right? Pride is the sin that bears everything. And so let's think about it this way. When you're judging somebody else and you're trying to compare yourself to somebody else, the sin, you would think, would actually be by trying to compare yourself to another human, right? I think we all can acknowledge that humanity, we are all equal as sons and daughters of Christ, right? By trying to compare yourself to somebody else and putting yourself at a higher standard, you are trying to be divine. You are trying to be like God, and lifting yourself up to a point that you can't actually get, right? And that's not achieved until heaven. Like, you're not there. We're not in heaven. We are human people on earth, and if we look at humility is just the realization of personhood. It's the realization that we are fully human, right? We have a soul, and we have consciences, and we have free will, and we have the decisions to choose God. We have the decision to not choose God, right? But I think humility is the realization of personhood and acting on that and respecting that boundary between you and respecting that you're human, not divine, and that's what's important.
Yeah. I like this. I like that you mentioned personhood. So I took a class freshman year. It was my UH 100 course. And a big theme of it was personhood and kind of exploring what that meant. And it's interesting to me now because I'm sure at some point in the podcast this semester we'll get into my story and coming sort of back to the faith. But freshman year I wasn't in depth as much in the church, and so looking back on that time now, the question of what is personhood is simple to me, right? And it should be for most every Catholic. Personhood is simply having a soul, and it's that body soul composite that we talk about a lot. And so we as a class approach it from a lot of angles. What is personhood? Is it because of, our shared experiences? Is it because of this or that? And just simply put, our personhood is realizing that, everyone has a soul. Everyone has a body. And so therefore, we are all persons. And I think, again, that's where that humility, that's where both that humility and that pride stems from, is that pride stems from trying to say that our personhood matters more than another's, which is false. We're all made in the image and likeness of God. And humility is realizing that truth, that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. And so none of us are any better than any of the other of us.
Yeah, and so you can make it even simpler than, trying to say better or worse and trying to make these constant comparisons. I think this really brought it together earlier today when we were in our adoration. Like, we're all together. We're all facing towards God in the Eucharist. And then you just remember, I don't know if it was because we're on the retreat or what it was, but it just reminded me, we are all the bride of Christ, and we are all the church as one. We are all one together. And then when Cole and I, we were holding hands during the Our Father today, and the united part of that. We are all united. We're all going for the same goal. And yes, we are all one, and we are all individually different in that one. And that's what makes it so beautiful and incredible, that we're just all different but also one at the same time, and that we're all called to be the bride of Christ together. And we are called to bring each other so that we can more love God, the perfect bridegroom, as a bride better. Like, the more people that go to Mass, I forget where in the catechism it is. I remember Father Mike talking about it, but when people aren't at church, the Mass isn't as good, because the bride that is there to share in the marriage between the church and Christ, it's not all there. The bride isn't completely there. And so the more we can bring each other to that, so that we can participate as the bride more fully in the beautiful mystical marriage that it is, just how much more incredible would that be? And that's the incredible part of heaven, is that we will be so united, and people I get scared sometimes myself thinking about, like, there's no human marriage in heaven. But that's because marriage is a symbol of the perfect marriage that is going to be in heaven. And we are going to all be united as human beings, as the one bride of Christ. And we get to participate in that incredible, even more incredibly, on heaven. And it's because we're all one and we're all united. And it all goes back to the Trinity, the complete unity, the complete, most perfect humility, right? The Trinity. I mean, they're all God, but they're all person. But yet they still give to each other fully. The most perfect example of humility that we could ever see. Like, imagine, as you talked about with washing the feet, Jesus was able to get down as God and wash the feet of the disciples. But then you have a God, the Father. What does he want to do? He wants to give so much to his begotten Son. They want to give so much that we have the Holy Spirit, right? It's the humility to just want to give and give and give. And it's so incredible. And wow, that's where we get that he must increase, because we naturally, with our brokenness, just don't want to give. We want to grab. We want to use, right? But Christ, God, just wants to give and give and give and give and give. He could have just stood up there in heaven forever and never done anything, but he wanted to give everything for us. And now we get to give. Jesus was the most happy person when he resurrected and realized, well, not realize because he already knew, but he was like, yeah, it's done. Like I gave myself. It's been done. Wow, how incredible it would be for us to feel that same feeling when we give to each other and to other people.
Yeah, I think relating this to the quote, you could honestly, if you wanted to take it from take it from this perspective we've been talking about with humility and pride, you could change some of the words here and say humility must increase, pride must decrease, right? If that's how you want to word it, and I think that's what the goal of this quote is in a sense to say, right? Because by humility increasing, you are letting him increase, and by pride decreasing, we are essentially we are decreasing ourselves to the standards. We are human just trying to get to heaven and be with God, right? And I think that's the ultimate goal of what this is trying to say, right? And I think that's why the first thing that came to my head, I'm like, pride, humility. We have got to be humble, right? It's the best way to counter this and this human animalistic instinct to try to be prideful, to try to want to be better than others. All of us are competitive. We are very competitive people by nature, and sometimes that can turn into more. And it's okay to be competitive, but it's also okay to have a limit on what you are competitive about.
Yeah, and I'll close out with this because I think it's awesome. This quote is from the Gospel of John, but this is John the Baptist talking. People asked him about Jesus, and he's talking about how
This is right before.
yeah, I'm talking about
Yeah,
right
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
John the
Yeah.
Baptist is saying that he is not the Christ. He's the one that was sent before. And then he says, the one who has the bride is the bridegroom. The best man who stands and listens for him rejoices greatly at the bridegroom's voice. So this joy of mine has been made complete. And I just think about, I know for Cole, I don't know when it's going to be, but I am very excited to be his best man. And so I get this image of just getting up to say this speech, and I get to look and see his beautiful bride, and then Cole his smile is going to be immaculate, that he's married to the love of his life. And to just think about that we get to bring people to Christ, the perfect bridegroom, and to just see that and to see the joy on the person's face when they get to see that, and they get to see, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is God's all I need. And then to just imagine Jesus' smile when he gets to bring that person. I think that's just beautiful, beautiful imagery. And that's what's so awesome about humanity and the earth and the world is because we get imagery all over the world of God. That's the most incredible part of his creation is all this imagery. But the thing is, the imagery never actually equals what it's symbolizing. But it's still so awesome to see. Like I get to think of this image of Cole that I'm talking about, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. But then even better is what Jesus is what he truly is. And so, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think the whole this whole story that this quote comes from in John chapter 3 is fantastic. I think one of my closing remarks is as humans we can only hope to do divine things, right? And that's not saying we are going to do divine things, but we can only aspire to do God's will, and to live our lives to that height. And so in doing that, in our search for that height and our search for that will of His, we are naturally going to glorify Him and decrease and minimize our role. As we glorify Him, it becomes less about what we do and more about why we're doing it, which is for His will. The best things I can think about is I was studying abroad in Oxford this past summer, and got the opportunity to see a lot of really cool churches. Got the opportunity to see Christ Church, which was a Catholic church before it became Episcopal. They had an excellent oratory in Oxford that was gorgeous. And so, I stand in these churches that were built, 500-600 years ago, and I'm in awe of the wonderful creation that these people have done in their attempts to glorify God. And I sit there and I think about it, and I'm like, this is cool. Like, this is really cool stuff. Like, when we actually try to glorify God, what we can create is wonderful. But you're exactly right. It pales in comparison to what God actually does for us. And it pales in comparison to the perfect plan that he has created for us. And so when I think on that fact, and I think on the fact that we can attain all these beautiful, wonderful, crazy feats of architecture or art or personal sacrifice, but yet not come anywhere near what God desires for us or what the beauty and majesty of his plan actually truly is, that's such a mind-boggling but inspiring thought that even though we attempt to do these huge things to magnify God, to increase him, and to decrease ourselves, that not at any point in our lives will we ever be able to attain that glory that he has put forth for us. And that's just a wonderful, wonderful thought. It gives me a lot of hope because heaven's going to be awesome. But it also gives me a bunch of hope because the things God has set forth in our life, his will for us, is such a wonderful opportunity to revel in his glory. Like you mentioned, I think one of those things is your vocation. Like when you find your vocation, when you get to sit down, when you get married, I gotta imagine, when you receive holy orders or whatever it is, when you finally like realize that like this is where I'm called to be, this is where I belong, like that moment of realization, that moment of entering into that vocation has to be the absolute closest you can come to that true glory that God wants you to be in.
Yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be moving on to our PPP, Practical Prayer Practice of the Week. So we will get back to the final thoughts on the quote at the end of the episode and kind of just give each of us our last little summary. Anything else we got to throw in there to close it out. But last week we asked y'all, or it wasn't last week, this was
Two
when did I post it? A couple weeks
weeks
back?
ago.
Yeah,
2
maybe?
weeks ago, maybe?
2 weeks back?
Right before,
Without this guy?
Yeah, right before New Year's, maybe.
Right before New Year's.
Yeah.
And, signed Evan on, gave him his contract. He got in, and he and I decided that we wanted to do a novena, and we both failed. So
Miserably.
we
failed.
apologize
We failed
about
miserably.
that. So if you did the novena, congratulations to you guys. We were unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But we have a new one. We're coming back with another practical prayer practice. This is more of a yearly thing. And, everybody starts off their year, myself included, over past years too, wanting to have some really good New Year's resolutions. You put it on your phone, you got a list, and you stick to it for about a week and a half. And you're like, oh, I'm doing great. And you miss it one time, and then you never do it again. Happens all the time. So this year, I sat down and made a list, and I said, I'm going to stick to it. What's probably going to happen to half of those? I'm probably not going to do them. But
no, you're gonna do all of them. You're gonna do all of them.
That's just why I have an accountability
Wonderful
partner.
thinking.
Yes.
Wonderful thinking.
I have an accountability partner.
All
But
of them. I believe.
this one right here. This is one of the most important. I don't know why I have a top of my hand. This is one of the most important ones that I think all of us should do.
Mm-hmm.
Choose one of the three. Right? There's three of these, and I think you've done one of them, haven't you?
I have
before?
not. I have actually not done one.
Any of them.
I've done
No.
two.
So Evan has no experience. Nazario is
King over here. Look at this
66%
guy.
complete, and I'd say probably about the 20% range of all three, because I am on day 90 of this, and had a lot of missed days,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I got to start picking it back up.
Yeah.
But we have the Bible in a Year podcast, we have the Rosary in a Year podcast, and we have the Catechism in a Year podcast. So, where can you find all these?
Ascension Press releases them. They're on YouTube. They're on Spotify. Both the Catechism and the Bible are hosted by Father Mike Schmitz, who I'm sure
Yep.
many of you are very familiar with. This year they are starting the so those two you can find all 365 days of, right? Feel free to browse at your own leisure. The Rosary in a Year, I apologize. The Rosary in a Year podcast is starting this year with Father Mark Mary Ames, who is a wonderful, wonderful personality. I know him. He does a few things with the guys from Pints with Aquinas. He does a few things with, I always forget his name. There's another guy with a shaved head. He's at the Dominican or something. But a few podcasts he's done with him. But Father Mark Mary Ames, wonderful guy. But yeah, so they started recording that this year. They're on day 11, 12, whatever day it is today. I think those come out every afternoon.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that it's a rosary every day.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the contents.
The content is not just a rosary every day. It dives deeper into. I know one of the episodes is with Jeff Cavins. If you guys know who he was a Catholic growing up, switched to Protestant, and then came back to Catholicism. And he came back to Catholicism because.
Don't hit the table.
Sorry about that. He came back to Catholicism because of Mary, which I don't know about you guys, but I've actually never heard of someone saying they came back to
That's pretty
Catholicism
crazy.
because of Mary. So I think his episode would be great to listen to. Haven't listened to it yet. I need to.
Yeah.
I think all of us definitely listen to that
Probably,
one.
yeah.
But yeah, so Rosary in a Year is just, it's different content about the Rosary. Hopefully it should go into, I'm sure, some of the appearances and miracles that have come through the Blessed Mother, which would be pretty cool to learn about.
I think it's kind of, and yeah, again, my girlfriend Caroline and I are planning on doing this. We're both terrible slackers, so we of course haven't started yet. But that's the wonderful thing about this. You can catch up. You can do 2 podcasts a day. I think these are only like 15 or 20 minutes. I know a few of like the Catechism and the Bible in a Year ones got up to like 40 minutes ish, and it was sort of a hassle sometimes. But this is a little bit more approachable, I believe, at the teens and the 20s mark.
If you're gonna go for it, if you really want to know, I would say the Rosary and the Catechism in a Year are pretty close in like being able to go for and being able to listen to easily. The Bible in a Year can be a little bit tougher, especially because Father Mike decided to go from the beginning of it straight to the end, so you have to slog through all of the Old Testament before you get to the New Testament, and it is quite challenging. I will say the Bible in a Year is quite challenging, and more than just actually listening to it is like paying attention, especially when he's going through all the names for like it feels like forever. But it's good to get through. It's a very good one. But Catechism, I thought, was the best one that I've done. It was wow. If you need an opening to the Catholic faith, if you need to reinvigorate your Catholic faith, it is remarkable.
Yeah.
So I think you can take the Bible in the Year 2 different options. You have 2 different ways to do it. You can listen to the full episode. If you want to listen to the scripture, if you want to listen to it, have somebody read it, and stick to that schedule, and you can stop before Father Mike starts his explanation, or you can listen to the scripture and you can listen to the whole thing, and Father Mike probably is going to talk for about 15 to sometimes 25 minutes depending on the episode, and if he's really into it he'll talk longer, and get a more in-depth understanding. It's up to you. I know some people just want to read it and just want to have that. I like it. I like being able to listen to him talk about it. Some really good advice I got from a buddy named Chase Collins is we have amazing technology today, and something that Nazario has capitalized off of with this technology, especially you actually, is you can listen to podcasts at the speed of rapping. And Nazario will turn on Josh Pate at 4 times speed.
It's just 2 times speed.
But
it
Josh
sounds-
already talks
Yes,
like
he talks
so fast.
No, he
yeah.
talks
Yes,
so
he does.
slow.
No, he does
does
not.
not.
Talks-
It
He's
sounds
from
like
the,
a rapper.
You're from the north. You're from the north.
So
You gotta
slow.
realize.
No.
I
He sounds
get
like
you-
a rapper. Yeah.
Even when Josh Pate came and no, this was a wonderful opportunity for you. But when he came here and presented, he talked fast. Like in person, he talks fast. So I gotta imagine on the podcast, I've never listened, but in person he talked fast. So I gotta imagine on the podcast he
talks so
talks
slow.
at the same cadence.
But
Basically, what Cole's trying to say, if you want to speed it up, just turn up the speed.
yeah, and that'll take it. You can take half the time off, and you can fit it in from your drive to work in between classes for us,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
becomes very accessible. Now, I will say, I like to read it actually along with Father Mike.
Yeah.
So I like to have it in my hands. So sometimes it takes the time for you to find time in your day just to sit and enjoy. Up to you. Like I said, these are all very different. You have more of a personal experience with the Catechism in here. Don't know how that one 100% works. Do you have anything about that you can
Yeah,
say?
it's basically the same as Bible in a Year. He just reads it and then talks about it. But
Yeah.
I thought those ones were a good length. between like really around 10 to 25 minutes. And I would just do them on my drive to school every day back in high school.
Yeah.
And it's the Bible it's written when it was written, and yes, they translate it to the new language, but it's not really like translated and modernized because it's not supposed to be. The Catechism is supposed to be a more modernized version of our faith to make it to the time of where it's at right now. And so that's why I think it makes it a lot more just easier to relate to, and it goes right at issues that are happening right now and things that are going on right now that we can, we're going through right now.
Yeah.
So Evan has yet to do an intro yet with the Lost Sheep podcast, so I'm gonna give him the honors of starting the Shepherd of the Week shout out. And I probably would just let you two talk about this since this is his fandom here. I'm just along for the ride. This is their Shepherd of the Week. So take it away, gents.
Yeah, so y'all may have guessed, since we opened the episode with a little bit of it, but Nazario here is a really big Notre Dame football fan. So our Shepherd of the Week for this week is none other than Notre Dame starting quarterback Riley Leonard. I don't know actually much about him as a football player or person, but he caught my interest because in a few of his post-game interviews, he had shout-outs to Christ, his faith, Jesus Christ, stuff like that. And, when you get up to the national level, no offense to Notre Dame, but they, play in independent, so they're not a lot on national TV. I think they're on ABC.
They're on NBC. That's
whatever,
national TV
whatever.
every
Careful
week.
about what we say around
All
Notre
right,
Dame fan over here.
we from the SEC don't watch Notre Dame a lot. So now that he's on
got
this
a point.
big stage, everybody's watching the college football playoff. It's really great to see a guy like him repping Christ in post-game interviews. So do you want to tell me a little bit more about him? And then there was a specific quote that he said that I would love for you to share.
Yeah, so actually, guys, Riley Leonard's from Alabama. I don't know if you guys know
I
this,
didn't know
but
that.
he
Where did he
grew
go?
up in Alabama. I think he's from Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
We gotta pull this up.
He went to Duke for a couple
I wanna
years
see this.
before coming to Notre Dame, and so he was transfer. And when he was deciding to transfer, the reason he actually chose Notre Dame, other than the football program and the team, was because it's a Catholic university, and he wanted to be a part of that. I think he has 2 or 3 brothers, but unfortunately, he was hurt in the offseason, but he's a great leader. What
Wrong.
are you doing? What?
Wrong. He is from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
No, Fairhope was his high
He's
school
from
in Alabama.
I
Oh, he
guarantee
did
he's
go to
from
Fairhope,
Alabama.
though. So he was in Mobile.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right,
I
shout
promise
out.
you he's from Alabama. But Riley Leonard has been, just the leader of this team throughout. But he's taken it on the sleeve a couple times. He's a tough kid. He had the Northern Illinois loss, and the reason that Notre Dame lost that game is because of his interceptions. And if we're being realistic, that can kill a player. And he was hurt during that game. And he got hurt in the Penn State game on Thursday, had to leave the game.
Big hit.
But he came back. And Evan, you were caught by his post-game quote from after beating Penn State. And it was, I think, what play was it after? There was a play that the interviewer asked him about, and he said, "Shoot, I just trusted in the Lord. I looked up and said, Jesus, whatever your will is for my life, I trust it 100%. And obviously, it worked out for him at that time. And, if it wouldn't have worked out, he probably would have been upset. But I don't think his answer really would have changed. I think he would have said this same thing, no matter whether he threw an interception or whether he threw a touchdown pass, because that's the type of guy he is. And people want to say maybe it's just Riley Leonard, but this whole team really seems to, just embody what it means to be a Christian and to be in, we talked about being one as one body as a church. That team really seems like a family. If you've ever watched them in this playoffs, you would know. They have taken
Homer.
Hold
Homer.
on.
Really
Homer.
biased
Have you
here.
seen?
This is crazy.
They have had so many injuries this year.
No,
They've
yeah,
lost their
they-
starting
yeah,
cornerback,
that's fair.
their third cornerback transferred. They lost their defensive lineman. They lost so many different players. They lost their quarterback in this game, and the next guy just keeps stepping up, and you don't know how it happens. Yeah, I'm sitting there like, we're so screwed. Like, there's no way. And somehow they just keep on doing it. And every Notre Dame fan, like, we've choked on this stage for a long time. Seeing it work this way it's been a joy for us. But one other thing from that interview, Riley Leonard threw 2 interceptions that game. Somehow he won the MVP. We disagree about whether he should have won the MVP, but he did win offensive MVP. And yet he never really was like, yeah, I'm so glad I got the MVP. I played great or anything like that. He acknowledged, I made mistakes that game.
He
Like
said,
he's
I
like,
shouldn't be up
yeah,
here.
he's like, I shouldn't be up here. I should not have won this award. We probably shouldn't have even won this game. I tried to lose us the game, basically. And he praised his teammates and was thanking them for stepping up in that moment for him. And it's just another way to show humility. What do we talk about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to do it on that stage is pretty hard. You're very nervous on those interviews, and so it's pretty cool to see a guy do that. Obviously, a little bit of Homer. So I mean, it did bring me to tears listening to him say that interview.
So that's Riley Leonard. Came from Duke originally, and so he's
Alabama to Duke.
Alabama to Duke to Notre Dame. Not sure how that path
If you guys couldn't tell,
travels
if you're
there.
from Alabama, you probably don't like Notre Dame, but these guys don't like Notre Dame. I'm not really sure why,
So
but
actually, my Notre Dame dislike, kind of stems from my dad because he was, LSU schools were his fan base growing up. So for years and years, LSU and Notre Dame were always facing each other in BCS and stuff like that. So he kind of has a general dislike of Notre Dame. Also, down here we are strong Power 5 or Power 4. May God rest the soul of the Pac-12. But we are strong Power 4 proponents down here, or at least I am. I can't speak for Cole.
Yeah.
So an independent school really riles my blood
Yes, it
pressure.
does.
I will
Yes, it
say
does.
It
that
gets me in a tizzy.
Notre Dame was the one to get betrayed first. Everyone used to be independent. We tried to stay independent, and y'all wanted to join conferences.
That is
so-
fair. That is fair.
And
That
we're
is
getting
fair.
$20 million for making the national
Oh,
title.
Lord.
Alabama would get $2 million because you guys have to share it over a conference.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, it is better to be independent if you can make it work.
Well, that's Notre Dame football. That's your Shepherd of the Week too.
We have a new segment. It's
yeah.
just gonna be
Notre
Sports
Dame of the Week.
conference
Yeah.
Sports
minutes.
section.
But yep. So we're gonna go right back to the quote really quickly. It's been a long episode. Everyone just have something to say and close it out. I'll close it out. All right. So I'll go ahead and go first. Humility, pride, two things right there. Remember, humility is the realization of personhood. Y'all agree with that definition? Are we cool with that? We coming down to all right, that. And then I think pride is trying to be divine. I think that is what it is. It's trying to be. See, I think we should
Trying to
actively
be bigger than God.
bigger than God. Yes, and that is what pride is. And so, pride must decrease while humility must increase. Gentlemen.
Yeah, I think I said all I wanted to. I think the only thing I can leave you with is just what I've already said, right? The only way we can try to live our lives is conforming to God's will. Father Mugaria today was talking to me about how we have to live to learn our lives within the context of God's will. And that was an interesting point that I need to rest on some more. But I think that's what this is about, right? He must increase, I must decrease. How can we live our lives within the context of God's will so that we are in a place that He is increasing and we are decreasing?
Mm-hmm. And God's will is for us to love and to be a gift and to give to others. But we cannot do this if we have not first received the love. We can only receive that love from God, our Father. So we want you to give. We want you to be loving towards other people. But first and foremost, make sure that you receive the love from our loving Father. Thank you all for watching. God bless.
And real quick before we close,
Merch
before we close,
Merch plug?
final announcements. Got to do them.
Oh.
Yep. Sorry.
Merch
Merch plug. We have T-shirts again. Gonna say it every episode. T-shirts on the site. I have them. I was gonna wear it today, but I left it at home, and I will be getting it back very shortly. Go buy them. They're like $22 online. Not that bad.
Put the link in the description.
I will put
On
the link.
YouTube,
I will
on
put the
YouTube.
link in
If
the
you're
description
listening, go
on
to
YouTube. And if you are on Instagram looking at a reel, you can go find it under our link in our bio. It has a link to every single podcast episode. It has a link to our merch, and you can see it all on there. If you want a bracelet, just ask me. I will give you one for free. I have like 100 left still in a bag. So we have a very large quantity of bracelets. Other than that, if you have any ideas for us, reach out. I did have one more thing to say. We are hoping to get some good guests on this coming year. I have some ideas of people that we can talk to. We have ideas from last year that we hadn't followed through with yet that we're going to try to follow through with this year. So we can't wait to bring some of these people on. Other than that, I think we're good to go. Nazara, since you closed it out, before I interrupted you, I'm going to let you close it out again.
All right. Well, don't forget, if you want to make this podcast even bigger and spread, hopefully, our message, which is ultimately the message of God, please like, subscribe, share it to anybody. We don't do a lot of that. We do not do a very good job of trying to plug that. But please do it for us and do it for the kingdom of God so that we can share our message. And we're just a bunch of college kids trying to share the message of God. You can do it in your own way as well. So be loving today. Let him increase in you. Let us all decrease. God bless.